Hello world, I'm your host, Data Mining Mike, and on this episode of the podcast, we are going to talk about how do I start a grill business. Our guest today is Scott Shumake, owner of Solid Firepits. He creates elegant, ergonomical fire pits based off of sacred geometry. Scott has quite a unique manufacturing niche as he provides function and art with the love of the outdoors. Scott has done some pretty amazing artistic undertakings with his fire pits and have sold coast to coast. I am highly confident at the end of the spirit of instruction, you'll be able to take what you've learned and apply it to your brand or business, and that's called value. And because of that, you should like this video and Scott's videos too. Check out all of Scott's information in the video description and please comment below. Remember that sharing is caring and subscribing is what winners do, but smashing the bell, that's what legends do. This channel breeds legends. But first, AI news. Toyota has been pioneering the use of machine learning to fine-tune robotic motor skills. The fine motor skills of a robot is called motor policy learning. These robots run on the same industry standard large language model transformers. These are the robots that are going to replace mundane human tasks, which is another reason why I like Toyota stock, ticker symbol TM. Tell the world about you.
What up? My name is Scott. I've been doing these fire pits for about 6 years now. I've been focusing most of my energy on kind of honing a handful of designs that are based around sacred geometry. Most commonly, the dodecahedron, the D12 shape, is kind of brought to life in half of its shape, kind of 6 pentagons rather than all 12. It makes kind of a basket type of a shape that ends up being really simply functional and aesthetic, real low tech but heavy duty. It's been really interesting, the journey of applying something that I'm interested in, such as sacred geometry, to where my creativity, you know what I mean, just kind of making stuff and using sacred geometry as the focal point of what I make, and using it kind of almost like a anchor or like a grounding point for creating beautiful and aesthetic works of art, regardless of whether it was 2D or 3D. In this instance, I'm making 3D works out of metal, so it's interesting. Most people and a fire pit typically is a pit in the ground that's surrounded by rocks or so. So it's funny that I'm even calling them fire pits. It's realistically something called like a brazier. And it's like an old like medieval design or name that's just not in our common vocabulary. So it's just that palatable 7th grader term to, and it's really easy. It's a solid brand name, Solid Fire Pits. Simple, easy to remember. And the reason I moved from my original brand name, which I still have and is my original and is my domain name, once you type in Solid Fire Pits, it gets redirected to my original one, which is Shumake Designs, which is my last name, Shumake. Then the reason I wanted it to be more broad was because the idea that sacred geometry could be applied in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be a fire feature. There'd be beautiful ways we could use the water element, maybe having water features and, kinetic wind sculptures using the air element, and, planters for the earth element, and tables for, and kind of go off on a tangent a bit, something that in hindsight that has been really cool, that wasn't really intentional, that I've found to be really rewarding about building the fire pits, is that it's a focal point that inherently brings people together and like gives you a space to be real and give each other time. Yeah, you're mesmerized by the fire, but you're going to be hanging out and being real with someone, likely not on your phone. And It's just like a real raw, primal place, and it's something that's inherently a part of all of us, and it's interesting how, almost literally anybody would like to hang out around a fire and, on a nice crisp evening, and there's just something about the warmth of a fire that is different than anything really, and then as well the way it influences the taste of food, like meat cooked over real fire is, you can't match that taste with briquettes even, or obviously gas grills, or even cooking on your cast iron inside on the stove. It's just not the same, and it's funny how intuitive and simple it is, like I never was over the fire cooker enthusiast at all. Like I said, this all started from an obsession with sacred geometry. Mm-hmm. And it just was the first thing I threw at the wall was like a fire cage in a sense. And to go off on another tangent, the fire cage was inspired by a sculpture that I did. And the whole venture came from going to school for art and from 2015 to 2017 at SFCC, Spokane Falls Community College. And it was my final quarter there that I had a welding art class, and it couldn't have been planned better. And it was just a happy alignment of circumstances, because it was the first time the class had been provided. It wasn't like, oh yeah, we always have welding art classes. It was the first time it had been provided that last quarter I was there. So it was like a really great opportunity to mix my prior welding experience, because I got a welding certification at Spokane Community College, And so I got that from fall of 2014 to spring of 2015. And so to have the opportunity to mix that, and I also did welding in high school since freshman year, so I've been welding half my life now. It's funny. But it just was a really great opportunity to mix my welding experience with art, because I hadn't have a whole lot of opportunities throughout my life to be super like expressive or creative with metal. Usually when you're welding, it's something that's really industrious or pragmatic, like a fishing pole holder, or, it's funny, even a grill. Even the idea of a grill is pretty not artistic. Like, and it's funny, one of the first things I ever built was a ring-shaped grill with 3 legs, so you could raise it and lower it with little wing nuts and whatnot. And that was, it's just funny. Like, that wasn't necessarily something that was it was a good experience building that grill, but it didn't sit in the back of my mind. It's like, oh, I'm going to make grills one day at all, and the fact that I kind of went full circle and ended up going down the rabbit hole of studying sacred geometry. And the reason I went down the rabbit hole of studying the sacred geometry is just looking for some sense of truth or order or understanding of, more fringe or esoteric aspects of our living, just the spiritual realm. And it's interesting how something as simple as fractal geometry, which is just shapes within shapes, and how something is simply mathematical and not necessarily super crazy with equations. It's literally just showing you triangles with triangles on its edges, or triangles within triangles, or, just really simple geometry that inherently you can use as a framework to understand more complex intrinsic truths that we have, that are just old sayings, we're all one and everything is connected, and just those deeper, harder to understand in day-to-day life. It's hard to see, how a homeless person or, just any miscellaneous aspect of our reality is connected to us or correlated to you. But when you can use the math and kind of show you how simply just like a web, like a framework, or like a cosmic web. This geometry expands, not necessarily expands because it's already there, but what I'm saying is like it interconnects all time and space. It is like this crystalline. It's funny because there's so many different ways you could word it. There's like 0 point energy field, and like there's just so many different like ways of wording it. And like I saw this video the other day it was comparing it to, scientists call it the field, and like spiritualists call it manifestation, religious people call it prayer, and blah, blah, blah. And no one's arguing its existence, but everyone's arguing what to call it. And so it's funny how there's just so many different ways, and it's a multifaceted concept that all these different demographics and fields of interest are using that force, to use like Star Wars as an example, using that force to be that intrinsic core. So that core that is within all of us is what we're all kind of connected to. And it's like, we could call it consciousness. You could call it God. You could call it, love, light. There's so many different ways you could, simplify it down to its simplest constituents. But, when, in potential altered states, psychedelic altered states, you can experience different levels of consciousness. And it's something that, we're all, it's so fascinating. Like, it's just really fascinating to me what a rabbit hole it all is. You know what I mean? And so all that, it seems kind of slippery and, untethered to our concrete reality. It's funny that I can use that as the most solid framework for all the designs of my fire pits, and the really simple and pragmatic structure of the way I live my life, and how I use those simple concepts and designs and bring them to life in their physical equivalent. And I then show up to markets and do show and tell in a sense, and people dig what I do and they dig myself, and then they buy a piece from me, and then the ball continues, and then I don't have to have a job. And it's just like the blessingest thing you've ever come across. And that's why people are so positively reinforcing in what I do, because it's such a simple, there's nothing mystical, there's nothing like scammy. It's just like, yeah, it's what it costs to make things out of metal. It looks cool, it's different, you can't find it anywhere else. It's just funny to me how something that can be so mystical and like hard to articulate can be also so pragmatic when you put it into use.
Yeah. And it made me think about how you were explaining the geometries within, for example, the Fibonacci sequence. If you could explain that to the audience, how the
simple,
yeah,
right? So
how that plays into what you've done,
right? So the Fibonacci sequence is simply starting from 1 and going to 2, and then adding your previous step to, and that's what gets you to the next step. So 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5, 5 plus 3 is 8, 8 plus 5 is 13, 13 plus 8 is 21. And so it's this stacking. And when you can, anyone could Google the Fibonacci sequence. It's like a spiral from the seashell, or a hurricane, or, so many different ways it can synchronize and be found in measurable reality. And it's literally just numbers and patterns that we can see. And that's the Fibonacci spiral. It's just one expression within the infinite realm of sacred geometry, as I call it. And it's really, so even the division of each number next to each other, so 5 divided by 3, or it might be so on and so forth, but it has a ratio of 1 to 0.1618. And that can be also found in the measurements of your fingers to your hand, and your hand to your forearm, and your forearm to your whole arm. You know, and that, and like, and so on and so forth. If you, it's something as simple as you take a ball, a basketball, and you measure the height you drop it from, and the next dribble, and the next dribble, and the next dribble, it naturally goes on that same curve. And it's the same spiraling, we could call it gravity. There's theories that that's not even a thing, that it's actually electromagnetism, and it's this same like coding, or, you know, that's where the whole conversation of simulation theory comes into play and all of that, because it's all so simply mathematical. You know, it's all the way our reality works is really like laser beam, like accurate every time. You know, I don't know how to, it's not the best wording, but like it's just a trip how much of reality that we can like manipulate. Like, go ahead.
Yeah. And so I was gonna ask you about that. So what you were explaining how you started to notice these ratios, and you've become very attuned to them since you've been building these artistic pieces based off these sequences. So what sort of other unique patterns have you found?
You know, so me being inspired by all kinds of different people, like say Nikola Tesla, he has the numbers 369. He focuses, you know, he expresses that there's a significance around the words or those numbers 369. And, you know, if we simply understood and were able to utilize the mystical power based around those three numbers, you know, basically it's like free energy that he was touching on, you know, in his lifetime, was touching on free energy with something as simple as understanding the power behind those three numbers. And so I even will, in my designs, work in thirds, you know what I mean? So like the typical size of my fire pit has 6 foot long legs, and I like the pit to be hanging from that to be about 2 feet. So it's a third the length of the legs, you know? And so in those weird little aesthetics that end up playing out really well when you actually, so, and then I'll even be mathematical with, you know, it's not just some whimsical length of chain. Like I measured the length of that chain to hang the shape in the perfect center of that tripod. So even when you're, you know, standing next to it, the corner of that D12 perfectly points right into the center of that triangular face of the tripod, you know? And so it's like, so there's so many synchronicities and overlapping, like, what's the word? Like, just, it's so balanced, you know what I mean? And it's like synchronizing with its inherent natural geometry. So like even the way that the D12 hangs within the tripod is exactly how the tripod and the D12 are faceted together. They're just,
hold on, what's a D12?
So the D12 is the dodecahedron, a 12-sided dice.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
I was thinking like the something else.
All good.
Like
the
rap band.
Yeah, totally. So like my logo, we'll take my logo for example. It's the 5 platonic solids faceted within a hexagon, and a hexagon is just a 2D representation of a 3D concept, and that 3D concept can be expressed as a cube. You know, you can split up a hexagon into a cube. You can split up a hexagon into all 5 of the platonic solids. And so that's where my logo is based on. And when you bring that 2D into 3D, you get all the shapes of my different fire pit designs. And this is really probably hard for people to articulate in their mind, you know, like from my words to their imagination, because not a lot of people can place the D12 in their mind. It's not like a part of their everyday experience like it is for me, so I can understand where it kind of can either not even hit the radar of people's interest or go over the head, however you could, want to put it. But literally when you take the D12, and so when we take my logo and bring it into 3D, like you could see at shows, I bring a 3D model of what I'm talking about. And so when you take the D12 is the exterior shape, and I think that's why, man, I could go down some rabbit holes about the D12, but so the exterior of the logo or the 3D expression of those 5 platonic solids is the D12. And so the D12, its faces are pentagons, and each pentagon having 5 corners. One, like if you set the shape upright, like corner sitting up, not sitting flat on its face, but like if it was hanging, that upright corner also shares the upright corner of the cube and the tetrahedron. And so the tetrahedron naturally is like, it's like a natural level. It's like a 3D level. If you hang a tripod, it naturally creates a plane, a flat surface. You know what I mean? Because of gravity or however you want to explain it, it naturally hangs with a flat bottom. The tripod does. And so when we take that tripod and we abstractly take it and make it bigger, it naturally sits on the ground perfectly, and then the shape, the exterior shape, the D12, the fire pit, hangs from that tripod just in the way that they're naturally geometrically related. And it's just like a trip that, like, what's really, like, to be kind of a bit self-deprecating and, like, humble about what I do and the artwork, I really don't see it as very creative or very expressive at all. It's more obsessively bringing to life something that's intrinsically already there. It's mathematics. It's like, it's not my theory. I'm just bringing what's already, like, known, kind of like mathematically in the books, and bringing it to its 3D form. Because not a lot of people do that for whatever reason. It's like a lot of people do love, like geometric designs and whatnot, but it's not what a lot of people focus their whole life on,
Yeah. So you're excited because you're discovering these rhetorical truths that you're finding in the natural world when
Right.
it comes to math, that, like you said, it's many others before you, rational men, have found these to be true, and it's exciting to see them in practical application. And I wonder too about your, like, how when it spins, where does the smoke go? Like, does it spin naturally, and because of the spinning, does it direct the smoke to a straight up?
I wouldn't say so much that, like, it does when it's spinning. The heat does kind of focal and funnel upward better, and it kind of almost makes the heat rise.
Yeah.
In a weird way. Maybe it's just because it's stoking the fire. That's something I've noticed. Is stoking the fire. When it's spinning, it's stoking that fire.
It's a self-stoking fire.
Yeah, it's a trip. But to answer your question, the smoke is going to go wherever the smoke goes.
Okay.
If the wind's taking it, it's taking it. But they are burning so efficiently that they're not as smoky as your typical fire pit. I wouldn't claim they're smokeless. They don't have those smokeless double sleeving technology that recombusts the smoke at the top. Super low tech. It's literally just a fire basket. But at the bottom of the basket is ventilation. The seams aren't fully welded, so there's like a 1/8-inch gap that allows oxygen to continue, burning up all the coals really well. Yeah.
Dude, what if you're to, like, have
a circle. You know how you have your
Sphere.
suspended thing, and then you have a suspended circle around it, and in that suspended circle is wrapped with copper piping, and the copper piping has water in it, which goes to a self-heating generator that creates steam, and then to a self-sustainable outdoor generator.
Yeah, dude. Believe me, what you're touching on is something I've been like trying to wrap my head around for a while. It's like, how could we create a low tech energy production? You know, I feel like there's some weird, we've been bought back, just to get real conspiracy theory about it. It's not even necessarily a conspiracy. It's just observation.
Okay,
like we've been bought back with convenience and commodity.
Well, there's no conspiracy there. That's,
you know what I mean? It's really interesting, like how, because our boxes are checked, right? There is energy available. You can just plug it into the wall, there is a stove available, so you could cook, and so much is like all the boxes are checked. But I think if we kind of literally went back to the basics in a real primal kind of a sense, while still using, certain aspects of our technology, I need a welder, right? And to make my designs and to bring to life the functional expressions of these concepts that I like, but I envision say getting a raw chunk of property, right, and kind of slowly making this low tech off grid, but not necessarily compromising. It would be like this experience, like you going out to this off grid, but it's nice. It's like you're living in this sculpture, and every aspect of everything on that property is art. You know what I mean? It's just functional. Even your sink, even the structure, your shelter, everything is low tech, heavy duty, but off grid. There's, it's literally like you're touching on. Can you imagine if it was just a steam engine that was churning, literally
just
a steam engine,
a generator? That's all you need.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
You got the heat creating steam.
Yeah,
you can,
low tech.
Like they do here with our garbage in Spokane. They burn our garbage, and it boils the water, which pushes the steam. Same with nuclear. It boils the water, which pushes the steam.
Isn't that hilarious? Something is so seemingly advanced as nuclear. All it is boiling water to create steam.
To push steam.
Yeah, it's such a joke, man. Our idea of energy production is so weird. It's weird.
Like, if you were to go on one summer tour, if you were to generate that blew the steam, and then you could go on your own barbecue catering tours and be self-sustaining with your own energy that you created.
Right.
That'd be cool.
All you need is firewood.
Yeah, and then you just all you need is firewood.
I got lots of firewood.
And then you got your little mini generator, which can crank
as much as you need for yourself. You know what I mean? As much as you need for the base to, man.
It's not that these things are impossible. It's just that people don't want. They're lazy. They don't want to create.
Yeah, the boxes are checked. We're not ingenuitive.
They aren't thinking of, there's a fire pit in the ground. You could raise it up. You could suspend it. It's kind of cool like that. And it's got other utilitarian things like cooking, and it's easier to cook because you're standing, and you can do the Dutch oven attachment, or you can do.
So here's a simple, design for a shelter that I want to build. That's so simple. It's literally tripods. You take 4 tripods, and you take the first 3 and you put them right next to each other. So if you're looking at it topographically, it almost look like a Zelda logo. You know what I mean? Just 3. So it would have 3 tripods next to each other, and then there would be a triangular space in the middle, right? And then you take that 4th tripod and you put it on top of those 3 tripods. So now you got a really big tripod. So you got 3 tetrahedron rooms. So you could do it off in so many different ways, but the center of that form naturally makes the octahedron, the 8-sided shape. So your center piece, your center room, instead of being in this cube 6-sided rectangular geometry that we're all like brainwashed to live in, you'd be in this beautifully triangular shaped octahedron, kitchen in a sense, center place that has your heating, central heating, your cooking and central heating. And then you'd have one of the tripods would be a bathroom. One of the tripods would be a bedroom. The one on top would be a loft. You know what I mean? One of the other tripods, like you could use the space in so many different ways, and depending on the size of the tripod, and it just depends on the length of the edge, It would be cool to even have these to where it's, like footed into the ground, but is like the level, the ground of your floor is, say, like a whole storage, basically under your house is storage. You know what I mean? Your first level is like a whole level up. You know what I mean? And under your house is like your garage. You know what I mean? It's just a big old, open space. You know what I mean?
I'm just imagining a pyramid.
Yeah, it's a 3-sided pyramid. You could do 4-sided pyramids. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The tetrahedron is just a 3-sided pyramid, Mm-hmm. And yeah, and like I don't understand why
we don't have homes that are pyramid shaped.
Why are we going backwards architecturally? Like everything is so cheap and lame, and plastic and cardboard. Everything's lame. Like everything is boring and just lame. Like, why don't people live in art? That's people used to live in art. In a castle is a piece of art. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's all economics and blah blah blah, and people don't have the resources, blah blah blah. But I think it's just a matter of that we're bought back. We're just bought back, literally at a cheaper rate than ever in recorded history. If you really did the math, yeah, we have a higher, like this is all like first world problems, right? But because yeah, we have more access to information, and there's running water and blah blah blah, and but realistically, we're working to uphold that system that's barely rewarding. You know what I mean? So like I was just talking the other day with my lady to think of how say if you're like an Apple person or a Elon person, like you're all gung ho love Elon, or maybe even the same person that's all Elon loves Apple too. So they're all Apple and they're all Elon. Everything that Elon does, they buy. You know what I mean? And everything that Apple does, they buy. So like literally you could rack up, I don't even know, but say whatever it costs to have a Tesla a month, right? And whatever it costs to have their solar panels on your roof, and the battery, and then this coming year he's coming out with a cell phone service that's attached to a satellite grid that's already up, and people have his satellite internet service. And so say this person has a $2,000-$3,000 Elon bill. You know what I mean? They're working for how much of their life is spent just to running on the rat wheel to make sure Elon is going crazy with all these weird ideas. You know what I mean? That don't actually benefit the earth. It's fucking weird. Like, it's fucking baffling to me how we worship these billionaires that are not helping. like it's fucking weird to me that people worship Elon specifically. Like, he is one of the most publicly adored billionaires. It's weird to me.
Oh, you know what? I don't know if you checked out. Well, I mean, it's probably the most controversial data science findings I've ever done was investigating Tesla explosions.
Right.
Because these people are in a cult. because there's so much of their money goes to this identity. And yeah, I like Elon Musk. I don't want to not like him.
No one doesn't want to not like somebody, you know?
I love what he's doing with the rockets. Like, watching a rocket land, it's like, okay, I could see why you would try to, like, sell people a bunch of fucking bullshit with an electric car that's got a really high probability of spontaneously combusting and you dying. But still, that funded SpaceX.
Right.
I mean, he's always he's an entrepreneur, so he jumps from one platform to the other.
Right.
He moves fast, he disrupts stuff. But yeah, but back to your thing. So my buddy had the same question because he's trying to buy a house or he's whatever, and he was asking about solar panels, and you have to have a Tesla home battery, and I'm like. And he asked about the Tesla home batteries and all the Tesla stuff because I'm the only data scientist in the world, literally reporting on this. Literally, you're looking at him,
right?
And so he said, I told him, I was like, look, if you're gonna get the battery, you're probably gonna need to have it in a separate shed, in line with asbestos. And something to think about in the future is, like, once these batteries get punctured or they spontaneously combust or whatever happens and the thermal runway begins, then your house is going to burn down. All right. Bye-bye. If it's connected to your home, or if you parked a Tesla in your garage, your house goes bye-bye. I mean, there's plenty of cases of this. I mean, this isn't, and what I explored was just fatalities, like people who died in a EV fire,
right?
Or in EV deaths. But yeah, these batteries are not safe. It would make more sense.
They're not ethical either.
No, they aren't ethical because you're enslaving freaking African kids in the Congo to go mine your carcinogenic cobalt.
Yep.
And not to mention, the only reason I'm into this whole Tesla thing is because some good friends of mine who live in Fairfield, Washington, and that I still have to follow up with them on this story too. But it was finally reported in the Spokesman Review. What happened was some dude, Tesla, flew off the road into the trees, exploded. All right, boom. Made an entire EPA mess. Spokane County EPA got involved. First Tesla explosion in Spokane County, for sure.
Right.
And so it was interesting because my daughter was there, like, for the aftermath because they were trying to get into the property and they have horses and whatnot, and so she was there riding. But from what they described, it seemed like they treated it like the movie E.T. when E.T. came,
right.
And like all the people in the suits and stuff.
Yeah, because it's serious toxic shit.
Yeah, it's no joke. And so that's going to be a very serious sidebar conversation for insurance companies all around. Like, oh, okay, you want to drive an EV? Well, we need to jack up your rates. And same with, oh, you want a Tesla battery in your home? I don't know if we'll insure you. Because if that thing goes up, the house is gone.
Right.
You know, that's something to consider. But if you wanted solar power, all you got to do is connect to the grid. You don't need an external battery if you're connected to the grid. But if you wanted to live out yonder,
right,
I would think that, you know, the crudest primitive ways are sometimes the best, like just burning wood to generate power on an as needed basis.
Yeah.
But it would be nice if you could live next to a creek that's slowly, you know, that is continually moving too. So
yeah, absolutely. Running water, that is the dream on some property. Running water, absolutely.
Yeah. Between the solar, the biggest thing is energy storage. Where are you going to store the energy at the end of the day? And that is a problem that no one seems to found. That,
I think it's just, you know, even, you know, sitting here recording the podcast, you know, it is a fun, rewarding, thing to do that's, very like, man, it's just a really great way to meet and get to know somebody on the podcast is priceless.
Yeah,
And,
I agree.
but how interesting would it be to be on like, this dream that I have, right? Out on this property that's all off grid, low tech, and somehow recording this podcast. Like, isn't that be cool, Like,
Well, that's totally doable.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's a lot of people. If you got the money, you can make
Right,
it.
exactly.
You can
Yeah,
make
exactly.
yourself sustainable thing.
And it is, as well as, like I was touching on, it's just a matter of having that initiative and like going out of your way to experiment and to figure out something on your own, and we're just so like blasé about our like ambitions. You know what I mean? We don't, like, the average person barely knows what they want out of life,
That's true. A lot of people don't have ambition.
Right. They don't have any idea what they want to do with their life. They kind of, like, say, even if it was me, without this business idea, realistically, my idea of fun before that was like, I did love jiu-jitsu, right? Jiu-jitsu is a wholesome, really great way of just getting a sense of community, exercise. It's the greatest, right? But before that, we'll say, was playing video games. Like, most people's idea of fun or like doing something is like kind of just being wasteful with our
I
time.
wasted so much of my life playing video games.
You could say it was a waste, but I'd say that there's a lot of benefit in all the trials and errors that you go through in playing a video game. It's just like, it's a problem solving thing, experience that you're going through. Just like people reading or doing puzzles or,
I know, I love it. And,
Right.
and we could talk forever about gaming and the communities that are built around it.
Right.
And like, you get to be the hero of the story. You get to be the story legend, and
Right.
all this stuff.
Right.
And then, but like you've touched on, a lot of people don't have ambition, and some people's only dream is, I just want to, I don't even know if they have dreams. Some people, like, a reoccurring theme is, I hear, is one day I'd like to own some property where I can shoot a deer on my own
Totally.
property.
That's a wholesome, everyone wishes they had their own
Yeah.
space, for sure. And I'd say on a real lower level, the average person just wants access to internet and a warm space and average kind of garbage food and the time to waste as much time to waste as possible. They just want to like watch video game, watch other people play video games. That's a new thing.
Weird?
That's weird. They just want to watch
I
other
know,
people
my
play video
kids do
games
that all
or
the
play it
time.
themselves.
Like, you kids have a freaking
Like,
Minecraft game.
and
Why aren't
I'm
you
not
just playing?
necessarily talking down on those people at all, because like, that's just the path of least resistance. That is the easiest option. And what's weird is when that's only the easiest option when you're in that like parental incubated state where someone's still providing for you, but it get kicked into real life and no one's paying your bills and you gotta literally put a roof over your head. Like, there's no mental space to like chill out and play video games. And that's where it almost becomes this reverse thing where it makes people want to work really hard so they have a little bit of time to waste and play video games. You know what I mean? Rather than, ideally, the work that you do would be rewarding enough to continue investing in yourself, and you wouldn't want to just like tune out and clock out. Like, everyone's just tuned out and clocked out. Like, it's weird. Everyone thinks, like, the average person would say, we're just speaking stereotypically, the average person feels like they've done their part by going to work and putting in, say they're just 9 to 5. When they get home, they have the right to clock out, because they clocked out already once they, punched out at work. So when they get home, there's nothing left in the gas tank. They're spent. They just want to freaking kick up their feet and be nothing and do nothing.
Wake up, same shit
Yeah.
every day.
Right.
Monday, oh my God, it's Monday. Thank God it's Friday.
Yeah, it's sickening. And it's just really weird to me that we're so disenfranchised, right? We're so institutionalized. We're so brainwashed and gaslit by society and the system and however you want to word it, that we don't even know who we are and what we want.
Isn't that a great thing if somebody wanted to invade you?
Right.
You didn't know what you wanted to begin with.
Right.
And most people don't realize what they have. They don't see the acres of diamonds that they stand in.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've noticed there are some adults that have never matured past being a teenager. They're literally just a teenager with money.
Yeah. Totally.
And they never grew the fuck up.
Yeah.
And you see that in a lot of ways.
And to be gracious to those people, it's almost as something that they identify by. It's like, oh, you never want to grow up. You want to just like have that kid in you, and you want to have empathy for that. But it's as well. It's like, man, just there's different levels of privilege and different demographics, and everyone has their different life's adversities, right? And so it's really hard to like place yourself in other people's shoes. You know what I mean? It's really tough, and it's like I've been like, so not to plug my own podcast, but I literally haven't even recorded one in like 2 years. But the title of my podcast, Tragically Fortunate, those two words, that's like the epitome of my worldview and my perspective on things. It's like, and I've been blessed by the adversity that I've had. And that, even in of itself, is something that not everyone has the wisdom or the blessing to see, that there is value in adversity, in trauma, in whatever that was fucked up. There's an equivalent positive force or lesson or something to be gained from anything that was bad. And it's hard to see that bigger picture when you're still hurt and you're still like fucked up over whatever fucked up shit happened, right? But when you can use that as a vehicle for like literally transmutation, for transformation, you turn that fucked up thing into something that formulated who you are and the person that you are able to give to others based on the empathy that it's imparted on you. Because you would never want to like, make other people feel the way that you felt or whatever, you know what I mean? And so it's just really interesting how like something as simple as to be personal, like I grew up in a chaotic upbringing with 2 drug addict parents, one not there. So, and then the one drug addict parent selling drugs. And so I was just surrounded by chaos, lack of order. There was never anything. And so, but to kind of de-escalate that picture a bit but reality, I never was hurt. You know what I mean? I was treated well. People were cool to me. Like I had all kinds of positive reinforcement from all those high as fuck people. You know what I mean? Like I was never really, it's really fascinating to me, like how a lot of people say they'll have the grass is greener, typical, both parents are at home. But they're fucking treated like shit. They're verbally and maybe even physically abused by their own parents. You know what I mean? But what's odd is my parents looked up to me. Like, my parents respected me more than anybody. Like, it's a weird flip of the coin. That tragically fortunate thing is, like, my parents, like, they literally looked up to me. Like, it's a weird thing to, like, it's a weird blessing that, like, yeah, even though I was neglected quite a bit, that was probably the worst form of abuse, was neglect. But at least I wasn't verbally or physically abused like some of these other like friends of mine. You know, I'd go spend the night at my friend's house that I thought was like better off than me, right? And you realize their parents are literally yelling and fucking beating the fuck out of them. Like, what the fuck? And they can't even watch a rated R movie. Like little stupid shit. Like, look, they have all these weird, stupid rules. And at my house is like fucking free range. Figure it out. You know what I mean? And what's weird is when I went over to my friends' houses, the parents would always be like, just very, like, they would look up to me as well. Like, literally, they would be like, man, why aren't you like more like Scott? You know? And it's because Scott is here, super grateful that you actually cooked dinner. And it was like available, like in some structured manner. Like, hey, it's dinner time. Everyone sits down. And like, I'm like fucking like stoked that we have, almost stoked that we have a bedtime. You know what I mean? Like, there's some sense of order. You know what I mean? And so it's really interesting, the dichotomy, the upbringing I had. So it's like at my house, free range, lack of order, and it made a person that sought order, you know, me. And then on the other hand, I'd go over to wherever the antithesis of that my upbringing, and man, the kids, they're so confined by structure and rules that the kids weren't very good kids, to put it simply. You know what I mean? They were more likely to be rebellious or whatever. It's like, because they were so confined by rules, you know, like, and so it's a really interesting, like, dichotomy there. It's like where one person, because they're basically overruled, you know, overlorded so much that it makes them rebel, makes them want to go get high, and makes them want to go, you know, get drunk and do a bunch of crazy shit, you know. But I'm living at the house where all those kids that did that, you know, a generation before, they're at my house getting high still 20, 30 years later, being nothing, being nobody. And I am being raised watching these people who did that. You know what I mean? And it's like, I see, like, I was blessed by seeing the results of going down that path. You know what I mean? And so I never, like, could even imagine repeating some of the things that I saw or did, or like just having the low level values and standards that I was surrounded by. You know, it's like, it's a monkey see, monkey don't kind of a thing, you know? Monkey see, monkey don't. And it's that do as I say, not as I tell, or not as I do, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, actually listen to the advice.
So you've noticed that some people thrive in chaos, where some people are so babied by structure that it's
A hindrance.
it hinders their creativity. It
Big
hinders their growth and development. And I see cases of that all the time, man. Like, think about it. The average age of a person getting a driver's license just keeps skyrocketing.
Yeah,
Like,
weird.
it is hard. You
Right.
Parents nag their kids about getting a driver's license. This is for a long time. I remember when I was a combat instructor at the School of Infantry, and every cycle is students. Okay, I remember when I first joined the Marines in 2003,
Right.
everyone and their mother had a driver's license.
Right.
Okay,
You have
like-
to have a driver's license
like-
if you're if you're an adult that is gonna exist.
Like, I don't
as
even
its
think
own
you could have
thing.
joined the Marines. Like, it's like, where's your ID card? Here you go. There's my driver's license. You know, I need
That's
it to get in.
unreal to me to think that someone's getting in the military and doesn't have a driver's license.
I know.
That's sick.
Yeah. No, it was.
Oh, you
crazy.
can go die for our country, but you can't drive down the road.
Well, they don't want to get it. They just, that's the
Right,
thing
right.
and so every cycle we get a new batch of students, like 300 students, and I'd ask the same question: who here has a driver's license? And those hands just kept getting smaller and smaller over
Weird.
time. Yeah.
Their moms are dropping them off to this, or what? They riding the bus? Like, I don't get it.
Oh yeah. So after, they will eventually get dropped off to us by a parent or some sort of transportation system. But yeah, they don't have driver's licenses. This is a common thing across America. And that has to do with social media. It has to do with people coddling their kids. It has to do with... it's almost like parents have put this expectation in their mind, like, oh, my kids can live with me longer. It's cool if my kids live with me until they're 25.
Right.
And then, they fucking totally do it. They'll totally just live there.
Soak it up.
They'll never leave the nest, you know?
Yeah,
and
totally.
it's because they don't allow their kids to leave the nest.
Yeah, I was 22, literally, and just soaking it up. Like with my mom, she was on HUD housing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so the housing's paid for, shelter's paid for, you know, and it's really, really, like, man, it's just really interesting how it's kind of inescapable. You know, obviously, you know, there's going to be the most virtuous, fortuitous people who would never, you know, exploit the system, you know, or whatever. But realistically, if you provide a solution and the solution is that box is checked, people are just not going to necessarily go the extra mile or have the initiative, the ambition to do what's necessary to provide for themselves, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's a weird psychological thing where we kind of need to, we have to work. It's simple as that. Like, we got to work. And if you don't, it hurts you. It's a detriment to...
Yeah, you are hindering your own growth.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, like, to touch on the idea that kids are, you know, staying at home longer, if they were being assets to the household, that'd be amazing, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if the family unit was healed and there was actually a family anymore. And yeah, you weren't somehow through chasing the Joneses and like whatever, trying to get your own broom and your own shelter and your own lawnmower and your own little patch of grass and your own this. Imagine if you actually loved your parents and you loved your family enough to where you actually did collaborate and pool your income to where you could buy a bigger piece of property and have, you know what I mean? And actually live together. Like, imagine that. You actually loved your mom and your dad and you actually wanted to live with them. And actually not necessarily just like be a lop and live in their basement, but actually work, and we all pool our efforts together so we can have a higher quality of living with a lower cost of living. By having a lower cost of living and everyone actually putting in an effort, imagine the quality of life that we could have. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, and everyone's just so caught up in providing for themselves instead of for each other that... And just doing just enough instead of going the extra mile, you know, and like, and I'll that's one of my favorite platitudes or proverbs, however you want to put it, you know, going the extra mile. That's a trait, a quality that is so important. It's one of the most, it's like in the top, like if you've read the Think and Grow Rich, it's one of the 14 principles, right? It's going the extra mile. You know, it's like super important to do more than enough. Not just enough, because if you do just enough, then that's all you ever got is just enough, and it's like, man, I just barely got by, and you're kind of always in that kind of stressed, like, hope it gets by, you know, woo, and then just barely, just enough gets by. That's not a good feeling to be in. You want to live abundantly. You want to live and do more so you can be more and give more. You know, it's not necessarily, we're so caught up in, you know, as I'm as guilty as anybody, you know, like I'm almost venting to myself, you know. We're so caught up in ourself and providing for ourselves that you lose the whole fucking bigger picture, is that it's not about you. It's about everyone else. It's literally about what you could do for everyone else. It's about how much you could provide and be for everyone else. Like, that's the whole point. It's so fucking, like, it hurts because we have a hard time even thinking in a way to not be for ourselves. You know what I mean? In a way, and there's, you know, so few of us that are even halfway conscious trying to say be of service of others and do more than just for ourselves, that it's hard to even have that sense of community where it's worth going the extra mile and you're not just literally overextending yourself for someone that's not going to reciprocate. And it's not necessarily that you want to be generous just because they're going to reciprocate, but if you're just literally draining yourself and fucking spreading yourself thin and nothing is ever like what's the fucking point at the end of the day? And it makes people jaded and want to just focus on themselves and, fuck everybody, and makes people have that I hate people attitude. And what the most limiting belief that is to say I hate people. It's like
that I hate people attitude. That's a good way to put it. That begets discontempt, especially when you go out with your heart on your chest. And we live in this society where mediocrity and conflict avoidance, it's the standard, it's rewarded. It's almost like you can't go up and do something nice for somebody unless they're homeless, and them not to look at you suspiciously.
Right. Like what are you trying to get at
this? Nothing's for free. Ain't nothing's free.
Right.
It's like, dude, and I've experienced this. I was like, even with like this podcast, I would tell people, look, there was a time not that long ago in our history where people used to go to somebody's house and have a conversation. Yeah. It's not that hard.
It's so weird, huh?
I know. Yeah. And now people are and I think
it's like that Tool song where they were like rediscovering communication.
Schism?
Yeah. Pretty sure.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And it's like just relearning how to even communicate.
Mm-hmm. And COVID fucked people up.
Oh man,
bad.
Yeah, that was a
fucked me
divider, big time.
I did not like that. I didn't like having to go to work with a mask on. I totally didn't agree with a lot of shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, glad that's behind us, and I hope people aren't so willing to be so sheepish.
Unfortunately, not to be a pessimist, but realistically, just being a realist, people, and this isn't even a I hate people vibe. It's just realistically, man, it's hard to articulate, but there's always going to be the people who don't necessarily think for themselves, and they just listen to the science or, whoever they perceive to be authority. Mm-hmm. They'll just listen to the authority and comply silently just to not ruffle any feathers. There's always going to be those masses of people that will put on the mask without question, that will get vaxxed without question. And what we saw there literally with that period of control was an exercise in the power of suggestion.
Totally.
Have you seen the movie? Have you seen the movie The Experiment?
No, but I feel like we lived it.
We did. We really did.
Yeah.
The movie The Experiment is an old. It's not that old of a movie, but it's a portrayal, a documentary / cinematic experience of this dude who studied the public, and he basically found that 6 out of 10 people will inadvertently kill somebody through the power of suggestion. And the experiment...
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was a really simple experiment. They would pay people off of the street to come in to a room that was the experiment, right? And I'll just go into it. So on the other side of the wall was the control dude who isn't actually dying, right? He's never actually getting shocked. He's only...
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Where they have the dude in the lab coat, and he's like, hey, the
experiment must go on.
Yeah, and a lot of people do it just because of authority.
Yeah, the experiment must continue.
Yes.
And with that simple line, people will continue increasing the voltage.
Yep, the experiment must
Even
continue.
though the dude on the other side of the wall is pleading, say, stop, I have a heart condition, blah. The experiment must continue. So they crank the voltage and they shock him again. And literally 6 out of 10 people would shock the dude to death. And so those compliant people who will listen to authority without a gun to their head will always exist. And it's scary to think that we literally live in a society, a system where those sheep, those very suggestible crowd of people, that's like their battery. That's like their main. It's like their main investment. It's like their main thing. It's like without those people blindly playing the role, this game, I don't even know if we'd be able to have this conversation inside of this nice apartment. You know what I mean? Like society and our world and our perception of capitalism and the way things work would cease to exist if everyone lived like me, I think, honestly. Mm-hmm. If everyone thought like me, like money wouldn't work. You know, if like all kinds of stuff would fall apart if everyone was like me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it's like this weird thing that we have to almost be grateful for, that there's these unconscious people doing the dirty work, doing all the stuff that no one wants to do. You know what I mean? Like they're delivering mail, working for Amazon, bagging groceries, checking out groceries, stocking shelves, plumbing, electrical, like all the stuff that I am not doing. I don't want to do, have no care to do any of it, right? I don't feel like that system deserves my attention, my energy, my force, you know? And I'm voting with my dollar, with my attention as best as I can, you know? And like I said, I'm not perfect. And I'll go out to eat and go to Taco Bell, plug Taco Bell right there. Look, you know, like, like straight up, we're all as brainwashed as anybody. And we're all doing what we can to, you know, vote with our energy and our dollar and our attention. Your attention is everything, really. You know, where does your attention go? That's what you're valuing, you know?
Attention is an asset class.
Big time. We're in an attention economy. Money follows attention. That's the only reason TikTok literally paid me, like we mentioned before we started recording, TikTok paid me $1,500 to make an ad for itself, TikTok, because I got some attention on TikTok. And they're like, oh, well, he has some attention. Let's exploit the attention that he got. Let's tell everybody about how much attention he got on TikTok to further advertise how well we get people attention. And that attention got what? Me more sales. You know what I mean? Without that attention, people wouldn't know about me. And this is where it gets down to the whole like professional conversation of building a personal brand and the importance of, you know, expressing and communicating your story and all of that. That is really like, it's really like the secret sauce, kind of like without someone knowing you, you're just off the radar. If you're not in their heart, if you're not in their mind, you don't exist in their world. You don't exist in their world. You know what I mean? Yeah. You might be like some third degree away. You know what I mean? Like we have mutual connections. You know what I mean? But I didn't know you. Yeah. You know? And so until you put yourself out there so much to where you're kind of like building a personal brand and instilling yourself in the hearts and minds of people, the masses, it's kind of, and that's where it gets down this whole rabbit hole of like where everyone is so seduced into the self and building a personal brand and, you know, promoting themselves on social media. And we're all, if you've seen the documentary, The Social Dilemma. Yeah. Yeah. So we're literally all in our cells on our cell phone doing our best to expose ourselves to the world when we're like, to be like real, to use my personal experience as like an example. Like I know what I'm doing isn't incorrect, right? Like I know it's got me to where I am. because if I was doing things so incorrectly, I'd be a homeless person. Like I wouldn't have been able to pay for the gas in my van to get here. But no, that money from that gas came from a fire pit sale. You know what I mean? Because I'm doing something right. But what I'm touching on is that I'm missing something old school. Something that's just how it's done. That's not, I don't know what I don't know. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I know there's something I don't know. And something as simple, people suggest, oh, why aren't you reaching out to campsites? Or why aren't you reaching out to Bass Pro? Or, Bass Pro owns Cabela's. All these different, why aren't you reaching out to these blah, blah, blahs? And it's like, yeah, it's a cool idea. It's uncharted territory. I'm just, to use a pile of excuses, kind of trapped in my pattern of what's working. You know what I mean? And it's really tough to go that extra mile sometimes, and to go into those uncharted territories and do those things
to get the bravery to attempt to justify changing your pattern.
Right.
To venture down that.
Right.
Which may be a fucking fool's errand.
Right. And what I've learned, and at the end of the day, is, and we all intrinsically know that failure is necessary, and you got to get however many no's before your first yes, and that, like, those no's were actually paying you. If you divided however many no's it took you to get to that yes, like, all those no's did pay off, because it is what got you to that yes. And I know that there's these intrinsic, like, truths that, will kind of override any excuse you ever have. Mm-hmm. So, and what I'm touching on is, I've put a lot of energy into the social media presence and some grassroots, and most of my successes in grassroots, just showing up to farmers markets and, trade shows and stuff, like shaking individual hands and selling to that individual face or family. And, like, that's worked out, and it's got me to where I am. But, man, when you go into any store, whether it was Home Depot or even a smaller Jacob's Custom Living off of Trent, you know what I mean? The largest outdoor selection of furniture and fireplaces.
Or Spokane. Walmart, ticker symbol WMT.
Right. So when you go there, those fire pits that are there available, that business bought those fire pits. They're not there on consignment. There's no big businesses like Kumo Stoves or whatever, you know what I mean, is doing anything on consignment. They're not cutesy leaving one in hopes that it sells at the fireplace center. Like, you know what I mean? Or, people, when they're suggesting ideas to me, they're like, oh, well, why don't you build some and, like, leave them at a nursery? It's like, who has the resources and time to build an abundance of products that I could realistically sell myself and just leave them at all these different places? Like, no, these places buy products. Like, realistically, professional, real businesses aren't leaving their stuff on consignment in hopes that something sells. They sell the shit to the business, and the business. So, like, what is it that I'm missing? Obviously I'm not doing business with businesses, and it's like, but what's weird is that a lot of the people that do have the money, the income to support me are other self-employed or small businesses or retired, just people that leverage their time for more money than the average hourly rate person. You know what I mean? Simple as that. I understand why someone really can't wrap their head around, say you work for minimum wage or even $20 an hour, really, even $25 an hour. If you're going to trade your anywhere from 1 week to 2 weeks worth of your hard fucking effort for one of my fire pits that takes me a day or two to build, yeah, you feel like, it's kind of a tilted scale. But realistically, how many skills and how many fucking, like, jobs, how many hats am I wearing, you know what I mean, to get that job done and to be in that position for someone to buy something, you know what I mean? Like, that's where the value of, and what's funny is you don't even, like, in my case, with building a fire pit, it's like I'm not valuing the time it takes to go pick up the metal or valuing the time to do all kinds of certain shit, to post on social media, to show up to a trade show. That I'm not getting paid for none of that. The only thing I get paid for is when you actually buy a damn fire pit, And so that's why the time spent building that fire pit has to be valued. So, and it's not even that crazy. I'm not even valuing it at artsy fartsy rates. I'm valuing it at like, this is what it costs to get stuff built out of metal. Go to any other place that needs to put this artsy fartsy idea on their checklist. It's going to be expensive, like $2, $3, $4 to get a basic one of my things built, because they got real money moving and real shit coming in. You know what I mean? They're putting brackets on beams to build bridges and, just doing all kinds of stuff that's big money. You know what I mean? So the idea that they're going to slow down and build a one-off fire pit for you, or even 10, they're not, and if they're going to charge you up the ass to do it, and they're going to charge you more than what it would cost to just come to me and have you build one. And so it's a weird political landscape or economic landscape that we're in, where the average person, they can't afford my stuff, and they can't justify trading 2 weeks of their life for 2 days of my effort.
Yeah, people don't understand the economics of manufacturing, and I have worked in I've done some odd and end jobs, and I've worked for 2 different metal fab places, doing, watching how the whole system works, from the plasma cutter,
right,
or the pressure cutter, cutting out each individual piece, and then you got to grind it. And I've worked in cabinetry too. It's like,
making something
$30,000 for custom kitchen cabinets. Hey, that ain't nothing, custom kitchen cabinets. Like, it's hard to find. These sort of trades are very overlooked, and people don't, even though they could be DIYers, they certainly don't factor in the learning curve and the mess up costs and all the other associated time to just perfecting that craft.
Well, it just
manufacture one thing. But like you said, like where the places I was working, I even asked people, I was like, well, what if somebody wanted you to make like a custom trailer for their boat? And they say, maybe if the owner was like, knew the dude personally, but no, we only focus on big contracts like with SpaceX and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So people don't get it. It's like, if you want those smaller things, you could go to Lowe's in those bigger box stores.
Either that, or you got to have an uncle that loves you so much that he'll sacrifice his time and effort to do it for you. Or you do it yourself, and you get I have mixed feelings because I've had a lot of people copy me and even go out of their way to send me photos of their results, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it. Mixed feelings.
People are loving it.
Yeah.
If you're being stolen from.
Yeah, the greatest art is stolen. Exactly.
The greatest artists steal and are stolen from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so what's funny is the point I was driving is that you'll have a rewarding experience building something for yourself, but realistically it's probably just and it just sounds like I'm patting myself on the back, but it's just not it's going to be as nice. It's just not. I've built hundreds, you've built your one.
Well, plus, the thing is, your hundreds have been through the scrutiny of others. Because I know, too.
Literally.
Because I'm a woodworker. I built these things.
Oh, that's awesome.
Everything you see.
Oh, that's
except
awesome.
the couches I build.
You built this?
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's made out of Paducah and Wenge.
Yeah, that's really nice.
And thank you. Yeah, and so, I mean, I like this, saying table design. But just because I like it, well, the thing is, I've built things like shadow boxes. I started out small, like plaque shadow boxes, and then people would each customer who was really anal,
Right.
who I didn't like working with,
Yeah.
would help essentially shape me in a way that my craft is not going to be fucked with, because it's like, I don't want this motherfucker bitching about that again.
Right.
Or I don't want this person to ever complain.
Exactly.
And then you come down to, and it's like, oh, well, the thing that sells the most is the most aesthetically pleasing, that goes down to Tesla's 369.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. I've made messed up stuff. Like, I've made a lot of rookie woodworking mistakes. A lot. I mean, and then I've only gotten better over time, but yeah, I totally understand what that's like. And for somebody who wants to do it themselves, but yeah, it's easy to look at something and scoff and be like, whatever, oh my god, that's so expensive, but not realize a few things. Inflation rate,
Right.
like, what drives the cost of metal? You know, that's part of it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of it is input costs. And you know, and then people go to some cheap freaking metal outdoor thing in Home Depot and be like,
yeah,
oh, this is great, I should buy this for $3,000.
Yeah. And it's made out of tin.
Yeah, it's made out of tin.
Yeah. Literal sheet metal.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I just wonder what we could, I don't know, it's these fire pits. It's such a simple thing. Man, I don't know.
Well, for your marketing, I thought of, you're talking more pointedly like getting big places to purchase mass orders of these.
Right. That's a whole different business model.
Yeah, that's a different business model. I think more like partnering for one video with different people, like Johnsonville Brats. Like, hey, I'm Scott, and today we're grilling on this Johnsonville Brats and blah 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 blah.
Right.
Blah.
Huh. Yeah, no, like network marketing, influencer marketing is where a lot of like marketing is funneling into, you know, and it seems to be where what's like really effective for even the biggest brands. Well, you know, something is literally, to use my own experience, big old fucking TikTok paid little old me to help themselves. They're like, here, Scott, here's $1,500. Will you make a commercial for us? Little old influencer me. Oh, I got 100,000 followers on TikTok and like 14,000 on Instagram or whatever, you know? Like, that's not that much influence. And I really don't use my influence. I don't use my voice, I'll put it, on my profile. Like, I do a little bit in terms of like showing my face and trying to like sell a fire pit and talk about a fire pit. But I'm not like influential, like politically or opinionated. You know what I mean? Like say if people were listening to if I was more prolifically recording my podcast and I was more like editing and taking excerpts from my podcast and using that content to, you know, further relate with people through my worldview and my voice, I'm not really doing that. So I'm not really that. So what I'm saying is I'm not even really that influential as a lot of these other people who are using themselves. Like, I'm using my fire pits as my influence in a sense. I'm not very influential at all. Like, if I was trying to be influential with my own voice, I'd be more talking about like conspiracies and literal, like, just almost just like this conversation, you know what I mean? Just speaking on reality and just like this is the way I see things, and so I'm not influencing my character is not very influential at this point. You know what I mean?
Well, I think you've definitely noticed some things that are good, and you've defined one thing. So this is something I ask people. What is money? And you define money, I define as human energy. All right. So if we reduce money to human energy, let's focus on what is power, what is influence, and what the ancient Greeks called techne. Techne is the ability to do cool things with tech that others can't do. So power is anything that requires you to say, I could do that, but I don't have the power to do that. Like, yeah, I could drive a semi-truck, but I don't have a CDL. So I don't have the power to do it.
So power is like privilege.
Power is more or
Like
less a lever
access.
for a yes or no.
Right.
And power doesn't beget another thing that you touched on, which is attention. Sometimes it does, but sometimes people don't care about power and they run from it and they don't listen to it.
Right.
But influence begets attention. So influence is what everybody else perceives as power.
Right.
And then there's techne. Techne, like the ancient Greeks called it, they really loved this concept of techne, like a man's ability to build a Trojan horse that could hold people to trick people to go in.
Like Da Vinci type stuff.
Yeah, Da Vinci stuff, medicine, anything like that.
Right.
They reduced it down to techne. So there's
Skills.
things that all the money in the world and all the power in the world can't solve, but it takes a certain person with techne to solve this problem.
Right.
So,
Right.
You are influential. So how I define influence as well, and there's 48 laws of influence, but he has just coded it as power.
Right.
But if you can influence people to hit a link, click the like button, share it, comment, and subscribe, that is a lot of influence. Every single one of those things is a digital asset.
Right. Right.
And that just grows your influence more. And the influence begets attention. Money follows the attention.
Right. Right. Exactly.
But I think you do have influence, obviously. You can influence TikTok to send a team of people to do an investment on you.
Right.
to do like essentially a feasibility study, like $1,500 in a film team. How much more can we get his channel to grow? And they're still running your ad down in Florida radio.
Yeah, all over the East Coast.
Radio.
All over the East Coast. Yeah, it must be across the country because when I went and picked up the rebar the other day, the guy at the rebar store said that he's been hearing it on the radio locally too. What's funny is nobody locally has ever called up from the radio and bought one.
Dude, I wonder if I know the radio's dying, but I wonder if that's like what they're reduced
East
to.
Coast is more.
No, they're reduced to TikTok as an advertiser.
Right. Right.
Which is kind of cool. I mean, if TikTok could give you that sort of voice through radio, which is a real thing. Because when somebody says to me, TikTok, and I have X in a blank.
It's meaningless, kind of.
Yeah, to me, my first thought is...
Followers, is that what you meant?
Followers. Well, the first thing I do is, like, do you get more engagement than that? Do you get more views? But I just have a lot of reservations about TikTok because they're Chinese. And
absolutely. They
aren't open about their data sets.
Right.
And
I'll tell you right now, for whatever reason... Like, let's just open it right now real quick. I'll go to my settings.
But you got some great freaking videos, though. That's a thing.
Thank you.
You do got some good videos.
Thank you. I want to share this. This is
And I
weird
like the
to me.
Death Star one. Like that, you got to do more Death Stars.
So, like, my phone's basically, like, blocked up storage-wise, right? And I've been having to delete old videos and, you know, just try to be able to take more content. And I was going through my apps to see what's taking up all this storage. And, you know, every app pretty much is under a gig. Every single app. Except for TikTok at the very top has a 33.24 gig storage capacity taken up. But right under it, Google, 0.98 gigs. Facebook, 863 megabytes. Google Play, 615 megabytes. Why does TikTok have a 33.24 gigabyte storage capacity, like, taken up on my phone? Like, that's weird. Like, what are they storing and why? And, like, what? Like, that's crazy.
It's the videos.
They're storing it on the app itself?
I think.
Because, like, I delete all the videos from my Google Photos.
Okay, so
you know what I mean?
But you got the videos on your phone. Do they have a TikTok watermark on it?
I delete those from my Google Photos.
Okay.
So they don't take up my Google Photos storage, you know?
Huh.
So it's like, why does TikTok have such a huge... Like,
are they taking
literally, it's 30.
I never even thought of that. How much space are they taking up on my phone?
Do you have TikTok?
I do.
Yeah, it's going to be the largest one because of whatever shit that we're not sure about. Yeah, there's reason to be skeptical about TikTok. It's not,
well, ever since I downloaded the TikTok app, it's messed up the microphone on my camera.
I think it might be messing up my GPS. Because my GPS is shit. Like, it's always like, oh, like, not very accurate and having a hard time. And I'll be, like, way past the turn and it isn't even caught up where I'm at, you know? Like, it's weird. It's funny, the other day, one of the people that heard my ad on the East Coast or somewhere in the middle of the country called me up just to halfway interrogate me about my TikTok account. He's like,
what the fuck?
Yeah, straight up. Like, at first he's like, you know, expressed his interest in, like, buying a fire pit. And then he was like, oh, so you like the Chinese military, huh? You like supporting the Chinese military. I was like, huh? He was like, well, you're on TikTok. China is owned by the Chinese military. I'm like, you think me posting my fire pit videos is supporting the Chinese military? And blah, blah, blah. And then I kind of went down to saying, you don't think our government is controlled by the military? You don't think the U.S. is controlled by the military? If you don't think that you're confused. Like, literally, our own country is controlled by our military. They got the guns. They got the power. They're the sergeants. They're the ones with the decision-making power. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter who says what. You know what I mean? You know, just like at the end of the day with the 6 out of 10 people, you know what I mean? Like, that there's the potential 4 out of those 10 people who are in positions of power within the military that they're the president, motherfucker. I'm the one with my finger on the trigger or has access to the codes or the buttons or whatever. Like, I'm the one that says where my soldiers go. You know, if you think our government is not controlled by our military, you're fucking retarded. You know, like, literally. And that's what makes people actually patriotic and actually halfway not lose faith in our country is knowing that our own soldiers and our own people do have our own interests at hand at the end of the day. You know what I mean? You know, at the end of the day, you're not going to turn our own soldiers onto our own people. It's just not going to happen. You know what I mean? It's like that's crazy. I maybe in little microcosmic instances like Waco or Ruby Ridge or whatever, but like mass full like FEMA camp fucking like whatchamacallit, what's the word? What's that? What's the term?
Concentration camp?
Concentration camps, but they have this new age like policy word that's like, what's the word? It's like, I forget.
Camp?
No, sorry. It's basically when they justify controlling under the guise of safety. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's
Martial
all fair.
law?
Martial law. That's the word I was looking for. You know, say this is martial law. There's Coast Guards on every fucking U-turn you ever go around. They got turrets for keeping people in the cities. There's no going out and hanging out in the woods. There's like you either fucking going to work and fucking being a good old citizen, or you're going to the fucking concentration camp and getting reschooled, or to the chain gang, or whatever it be. You know, like, so basically, I don't even know how we got down that path, but the point is, oh yeah, some random guy hearing my commercial, calling me up, interrogating me on my TikTok account. And so I asked him literally just forwardly, I was like, did you call because you're interested in a fire pit, or just to interrogate me? Because either one's okay. He's like, well, a little bit of a both. You can just tell that he was just like an old gruffy dude that wanted to see, you know, how abrasive he could be without someone else being a triggered little bitch. You know, it's like I was real level-headed and professional about it all. You know what I mean? It's like, and so maybe he'll call and buy a fire pit someday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he didn't buy one that day.
But at least he went to your website.
Right. He heard my ad thanks to TikTok, right? Without TikTok, I wouldn't be on the radio. Can you imagine the amount of money that they invested in me beyond, or in themselves technically, but in a roundabout way in me, just to put that content out there? It's like, yeah, I signed my rights away for them to exploit that content indefinitely, right? It's their content. They bought it. They paid for it fair and square. Now they could use that ad forever. You know what I mean? And so imagine how much money they've put into using that ad.
Yeah, they're hooking you up.
Like, holy shit.
Running on the East Coast on the radio?
Probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. Honestly. To be paying on the radio for over a year. It's been a year.
And how much sales has it generated? So that's a realistic thing.
So last year, I think it maybe wasn't a full year. I feel like they maybe gapped and then restarted it again here a couple months back. Like, because they did it. They played the ad for a month or so, they claimed. But I'm pretty sure it played for more than a month last year. No one called me. No one bought nothing. Got me nowhere, right? Year goes by. And I get a random call from someone on the East Coast. And they're like, yeah, I heard your radio ad. I was like, what? They're playing that ad again? That's crazy. And yeah, like that week that they started playing it, or who knows, but within that week, I got like 3 or 4 calls and 2 sales. And then probably total in this last couple of months, like 4 or 5 of my sales have been from that ad. Like, it's pretty cool.
I'm wondering if... Dude, I wonder sometimes. Like, because I know they're doing it really well with people's social media feeds, right? Like, just by virtue of you and me being in the same room together, we're infecting each other's feeds. Like,
Right.
I won't be surprised if I see
time.
one of your videos on one of my
Right.
things.
Totally. Even just the proximity.
Yeah.
Not alone our audio being
And
recorded.
I wonder if TikTok then is onto something where they are sending, like, the radio station syncs with your social media feed and sends you targeted radio ads.
Right.
Specific, like that specific person.
Right.
Like people you would know, like the dude at the metal store, he would know.
Right.
The dude on the East Coast was probably like, I'm thinking about making a fire pit, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
and then,
literally.
And then he's driving, and then TikTok knows what he was thinking. And this is like totally happening in many levels with Amazon, like to the point where you think of something and it pops up out in an ad on your phone, and you're like, this is creepy.
Yeah.
That level.
Right. Yep.
I think that's, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they're doing with the dying radio. If they're trying to like take it and use it as, and that's beautiful if they are. I mean, wow, that's impressive. If they're sending people
like targeted
radio ads while you are driving in
so
your car.
To answer you, probably yes, in the circumstance that I think half of the, like, if I'm not mistaken, these people are like Sirius XM type people. You know what I mean? So it's like a digital radio already. So there is that potential algorithmic targeting software probably embedded in it. So it probably is. I wouldn't doubt it at all. Like, and I think it's funny how reserved and skeptical we are to our paranoias or assumptions or just clear as day understandings of how things work. Like, oh, that sounds crazy. It's like, no. Did you not watch the TED Talk or the Science Convention speech on this technology? This is plain as day. This is the tip top. This is the shit they're using to fucking exploit us as people. And you know what I mean? Like, just the idea that with AI, they can use your router and its signal to make a 3D model of your room and can get really accurate body configuration. Like, it's literally see where you're at in 3D. You know, your Wi-Fi signal and your body disturbing that signal can be transmuted into a visual image, that coding, you know. And that's just one little silly example of the power of our technology being used in ways that sounds like science fiction. Like, it sounds like something out of like a Total Recall or some weird fucking futuristic movie, but no, that's not even that crazy, because it's literally using our technology that we're all used to and just adding artificial intelligence capabilities to it. You know, it's like everyone knows what a Bluetooth is, you know, but just right out of just that technology, the Bluetooth itself is so capable beyond what we can even imagine capable. Like, it's weird.
Yeah, this computer, I don't even know all the stuff it can do.
Right.
More stuff than I'll ever care to learn.
Yeah, because it's glorified recording and database, like something it's your window to put your content into the world. It's like you're not 3D modeling or like all kinds of weird shit that you could do, and software coding and like all kinds of crazy stuff that's beyond me by a million years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so to go kind of ground ourselves to the sacred geometry a bit, just if so to drop the main inspiration, it would be Nassim Haramein. He's a theoretical physicist who developed the unified proton theory that he won some respectable prize in the physics world, right? And so there's like the premise that math and the physics community and worldview generally takes like 20 years to catch up. You know what I mean? And so, like, that's why we're kind of caught up on. The world is completely attached to Einstein's math. You know what I mean? And, like, is incomplete math. And so, in Einstein's math is the math of the big stuff. You know, the universe and all the stars and universes. And Nassim Haramein, he, through fractal geometry, which is literally, you can start off with a circle and make a honeycomb pattern within it of circles, and that same pattern of circles can continue on inside of each of those 7 circles. And so if we think of the proton as a boundary, a boundary of, so the proton itself is like a boundary. We'll say that's first circle. You know what I mean? And within that first circle, it's infinitely divisible. And sorry.
Yeah. So infinitely divisible.
And so that's where the whole like spiritual concept of like unity and like we're all one comes from, is because we quite literally, our experience is a division of one. It's like we are only can be literally boiled down into our constituents by being divided from that oneness. You know what I mean? And so that what makes you separate from the couch and everything. And you know what I mean? And so it's that division, that infinite division of one. If we could just think of one as energy, you know what I mean? And that energy as one thing is only one thing. It's not very interesting, realistically, but if it can be divided infinitely, you now have infinite possibility of articulation, space, and designs, and life forms, and everything that we see in our reality. And so through that infinite division of one, we get everything that we have. And so it's really elegantly and simply visually represented with that circle and dividing that with circles. Or you could even maybe go the opposite direction. That might be easier for some people's imagine. Take a circle and then you surround that circle with 6 circles. And that perimeter of those other 6 circles creates your next circle. And then you could just keep doing that pattern outward. It could go outward infinitely, you know, or that pattern can go downward infinitely. So it's a fractal. So it means that all detail, everything that it needs to know to continue repeating itself, is embedded in itself. Just like any life form, like a seed of an oak tree, or a sperm that begets a person, or any other type of animal. It's that in that seed, in that packed within whatever, like a seed, plants and seeds are a great example. You know, if we could imagine the universe is like that one seed, right? And it gets divided into all these other kinds of seeds that create all the plants that we see. You know what I mean? And within that one seed, it has all the fractal information it needs to grow another tree with all those seeds again. And it just never goes away. It's like this timeless thing. And that gets into the whole conversation is like, did the universe ever even not exist at all? Like, are we in a timeless experience of, like, quite literally a heaven? Are we already in heaven and there is no actual death, and our ideas of death are actually transitions into next experiences? And like, there's no concept of no thing. It's not a thing. There's no thing. There's no concept of non-experience. Like, when you're done, your essence just zooms into the next experience. There's no concept of death. Like, and that's like a whole rabbit hole, you know, and this is attached to, and so to get back to this technological possibility that I was touching on with Bluetooth and blah, 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 and just the technology we already have at hand that's already on the shelf available to the public. With the mathematics that I'm touching on, the fractal geometry, and how if all time and space is embedded within every position and every point in space, and so like literally all just actual truth exists, an actual core reality exists, and we could tune into it, and we could decode it, and we could literally know what's real through technology. But we, through our system of deception and, you know, control and power and money and all that stuff, we are literally kind of held in a simulation, quite literally a false reality that, like, is holding back this technology that I'm touching on. And the technology that I'm touching on, imagine if we just literally ramped up your Google Maps capability to my farthest realms of my imagination, right? So instead of it being limited right now, it's not live stream, you know what I mean? Like, someone has live stream maps, you know what I mean? Someone's paying, or some government agency can live stream maps, you know what I mean? They could zoom down onto the, and this is like old words, you know, from old documentaries. And this ain't new shit, you know? Like, they can, with their current alleged satellite systems, zoom in live to a quarter on the sidewalk and read the date. You know what I mean? Like, no problem. And they're allegedly taking an entire global image twice a second. So so they probably got it down to like 60 frames a second, at least now in 2023, 2024. This is like a 20-year-old documentary I'm referring to. You know what I mean? That was saying that this is what they're doing already. They're taking 2 pictures a second of the entire globe in every spectrum that you could need. X-ray, gamma, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So they could see through walls, topographically, the entire planet. And at this time, they had 2 weeks of, like, they could rewind. And it was all, like, in the guise of anti-terrorism, right? It's like, oh, we could follow where the bomb man. We could man. You know, that's their whole claim. And so I'm just using examples of what was already obviously capable because they're saying it to you on TV in a documentary. So the farthest realms of my imagination leap to the real, not that crazy possibility, mathematical, like being grounded to the crazy mathematics of that we're all one and all time is embedded within itself and all events are simultaneously happening. So within that, the realm of that, you're telling me there's a software that I'm being limited by. That I could open up Google Maps and say the time. Say I want to watch. Like you could type in the longitude, the latitude, and the altitude. So like your X, Y, Z axis of position of space. And then further we'll add a dimension, of like 5D, so time. So whatever position in space and whatever time in space. Now through that like target that like, all right, that's where we want to go. We can now 360 view live from our position and our current waking life. Say I want to watch Lincoln get assassinated from the point of view of on the stage. You know what I mean? Actually, 10 feet up from the stage because that would be too low. I want to see it from up there. You know what I mean? And then you watch some dude fucking come in, blast him in the fucking head. And you'd be like, wow, that really happened. That's truth. Or whatever, you know what I mean? And so on and so forth with every potential whimsical thing that you'd want to watch. And you could do it frontwards and backwards. You could do it backwards, like a catalog of history, of truth. And then you could extrapolate in the future into alternate timelines, potential timelines. Because, the future is basically owned. It's like this. That is what is like, I assume or, like imagine that the whole spiritual warfare is based upon. It's like, what future are we bringing to fruition? You know what I mean? And so based on the spiritual forces and every weird way it funnels down into our physical reality, like that's what we're like. And so that's what's trip. And it's like literally sounds like some science fiction shit, but everything that we do is science fiction. Everything that we do is crazy. Like
shit, doing this podcast is like ridiculous.
Yeah,
like the concept of it back in the 50s.
Right.
Who has their own radio station at home?
Well, and even the way that we're doing it right now is primitive. You could be in a different country. We could be doing it like Zoom call pretty much and be live with so little delay it doesn't even matter. You know what I mean? Especially if we've got both really good connections, there's no delay. And we're having a digital face-to-face conversation across the world in real time. So you're telling me you can't do that with a spiritual entity in this non-physical realm? I think that you potentially could communicate with non-physical entities through technology. Like,
Oh, like EVPs and shit?
no, so like say the idea that, so like say your great grandpa, you never even met, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's ancestrally attached to you, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea that that person could be like kind of not necessarily brought from the dead, but contacted, or
Like through a seance of technology?
not necessarily a seance, but like just like calling, like a Zoom call,
Yeah.
just like anything, just like any other pragmatic, really simple. Oh, I just got to schedule a time. You know what I mean? And like, you know what I mean? It's like angels, like angels and demons and all that kind of stuff. Like, there's a reason that it's in our psychology.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's not nothing.
Yeah, no.
Right.
I'm just trying
No,
to see, like...
Right.
I mean, you went all over there.
I did.
My first thought is about this dude who was able to manipulate his phone, so everywhere he traveled on Google Maps, it registered his phone as a car accident, so it would divert traffic from his route.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Nice. That's funny.
But then I was thinking, all right, okay, so you went from Google Maps to going back in space time to see a virtual event,
So
or
the
talk
leap of
to somebody from the past. Like, I want to talk to the consciousness of Abraham Lincoln, and which it could totally happen through AI. Like, if you trained a language model to digest all of Lincoln's scripts and speeches and
which
everything,
they've already done.
You're probably gonna have some semblance of like who Lincoln is, and you could, because he's left a lot of media in the past. He's wrote a lot of letters and poetry. You could probably recreate some sort of Lincoln.
Right. And so that is really pretty easy to wrap our head around because, there's all of this written physical documents that we can use to,
I could say
amalgamate.
Hey, like, have you met ChatGPT?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, you could be like, ChatGPT, give me a freaking title that sounds like Mr. Beast would say it. And then,
Yeah. Straight up. Yeah. ChatGPT is, I think we don't even really wrap our head around it. Like, it's so new. It's literally not even a year old to the public.
Yeah, no, you're right. Dude, last night I was at this TED Talk event, and two people were up there talking about AI. But it's the dude up on stage asked, who here has used ChatGPT? Raise your hand. And I raised my hand, and the person next to me raised their hand, and then I looked around thinking everybody. I'm like, oh no, not that many people have used ChatGPT.
No.
And then, but people are just deathly afraid of the damn thing. It's like, have you ever had a conversation with a fake chatbot?
Right.
That's the same thing.
It as well, kind of like with people's paranoia for downloading TikTok. It's a privacy thing too. They're like, oh, it's gonna read and soak up all my data and blah blah blah. It's like everything does that. You've already signed your rights away for everything. What's it matter?
Nothing. You don't own the fucking data. Like, all these companies are suing each other over the data, over who owns it, but you don't own it. You agreed to use a license.
Yeah, that's
and
why
all
it's
the
free.
tracks.
That's why it's free.
Yeah, in all the tracks that are created on this license, even what's nuts is like they'll still sell your stuff even if you agree. Like, they'll sell it. Experian, Equifax, all of them, they're data marts too. So they'll sell they'll sell data to people like me, the data miners, to mine through it. But yeah, that's real. But yeah, you're right, man. Nobody has their own data. So when people say, oh, they're hacking you, be like, dude, you're already hacked. You gave away your privacy the day you chose to get a cell phone.
Straight up.
Like,
done.
Sure, we're doing a podcast, but it's totally possible freaking Big Brother's listening to us too.
Yep.
If not Big Brother, then
it's not possible. That's just part of it. Like they're like one big circle handshake. Like, you think their business would be allowed to be so big without such, okays, yes, and agreements? Oh, yeah, you can get that invasive on people, but we need access to all of that. You can't just hoard that data yourself. We need access to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's cool that you did all that. Thank you for developing that software, but we need access to that. And without that, you're done. We're the we're a big brother. You ain't doing nothing without our say so.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, it's weird. It's weird how it's not. I think it's weird to think that anybody even debates any of it. It's like,
Or
it's
the
not even a
existence
debate.
of Big Brother.
Right. It's not even a
It's
debate.
very Orwellian.
Yeah.
Big Brother's here.
Yeah, the deep state, Big Brother. Like, if you're not, you either are simply aware to it or you have your head in the sand and you purposely think everyone else is crazy. You're like, oh, they're crazy. It's like, no, I'm not so scared that I fucking am open-minded enough to listen and read things that you wouldn't even take the time to listen to or read. Because you're so, like, it's just people as different as,
Yeah.
people have different values.
Yeah, you're right. And that people take the time to read it. And that's the thing is Big Brother is drowning in data. Right. There is so much data being generated, and a lot of it is totally dirty. So it takes somebody like me to get the data and clean the data and run it through the machine learning models. But, like,
tell me more about, like, the things that you've done and, like, maybe how you make money. Because it's pretty not mystical how I make money. How do you make money? How do you live? How did you pay for your electricity and all that?
Oh, well, first, the people who make money work in a mint. Everybody else has to earn money.
Right.
So you can...
Say that again?
The people who make money work in a mint.
Okay.
Everybody else has to earn it.
Okay.
So you earn money by providing services to people.
Right.
I earned money by making wise investments when I was younger, and it paid off. Well, first and foremost, that big ass bull elk is because I got lucky when I was a teenager.
Nice.
Yeah, and it doesn't. There's not. This I'm not rich, so yeah. But how do you make money? There's a lot of ways I could make money through the
how
world
do you
of
earn
AI.
money? How do you put gas in your tank? How do you feed yourself?
By investing in companies that are good, that produce a product or service that you use.
So, like, stocks?
Yes.
And so you get paid dividends, or how does that work?
Yes. Dividends are nice. Dividends are tax-free.
I'm completely ignorant.
Oh, well, then they want you to be.
Yeah.
They want you to be scared. They want you to not. They want you to fear those graphs. But it was one of those things growing up where it was kind of like a rich dad, poor dad story where my rich dad was my Uncle Mike, who was my uncle who was an electrician. He was only a tradesman and didn't go to college. In contrast, my real dad got a master's degree. He was my elementary school principal and all that stuff. And so I don't know if you ever read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. You should.
I bought it. I haven't read it.
Yeah, you should read it. But like Robert Kiyosaki talks about, like the rich dad isn't confined by that mindset. You know, the rich dad had to learn order and structure, and then he starts to identify like people who have the minds of slaves. Like when you go to school, you're going to an indoctrination mill where you sit in a box and you train to a bell like Pavlovian dogs and everything.
Right.
But my Uncle Mike, he's dead now. I mean, God rest his soul. But great man. But he started out as an electrician, and then he went into real estate because everybody's like, oh, all the money's in real estate. And then he started developing real estate, and then he ran into somebody like me. who told him, no, the greatest generator of wealth is the U.S. stock market. There's no greater generator of wealth on the planet than the U.S. stock market. That's why the dollar is the standard of the world, because it takes U.S. dollars to purchase U.S. stock or Bitcoin in certain forums. But yeah, so a lot of people don't, and this is another thing. And so from a young age, I was more interested in the stock market. I started to understand things. Like I could, at the age of like 16, I could tell you a raw concept of, I could tell you the difference between a 401k and a Roth IRA.
Right.
But I didn't know more than that. And then my uncle started buying me these Jim Cramer books, so I started reading Jim Cramer's books, and I started getting more pieces of the puzzle. Then I joined the Marines, and then in the Marines, that's when I started like getting income. So like deployment money and whatnot.
Right.
And re-enlistment money. And this was years ago. And then my Uncle Mike's like, all right, I'm going to start teaching you how to make money now. So, and he's like, hey, start buying. And so what he taught me first was seasonally how you can make money. So you can purchase energy stocks before the summertime, sell them after the summertime. You take a capital gain. So that's the first thing he taught me. And I was like, damn, man, we're making fucking money. He's like, yeah. And so you can make seasonal money off of energy stocks. However, if you sell them, you're going to take, you have to understand capital gains tax. And the thing is okay, I'm jumping all over the place. After I got out of the Marines, I went to Gonzaga University and I graduated and got my business degree and my management of information systems degree. And in business school, I had a lot of accounting classes and a lot of business finance classes and all these things that were pounded into my head. And then what they tell you / don't tell you in business school is, yeah, anybody can start a business, but most businesses fail. We're going to teach you how to essentially just get rich off of everybody else's businesses that are doing good. And you can do that by business finance. So everybody thinks like, what's your first thought? Like when you want to finance a business, what's your first thought?
It's completely uncharted territory for me. It's something, so for my own personal experience, having, done everything I can to kind of build a track record of sales and like income and gross, like last year I grossed a little over 100K, right? But after you deduct all of everything, and like it was only like a taxable income of like 4,000 or 5,000. You know what I mean? And so the bank basically looks at my efforts as cute and doesn't provide me anything. And I think it's because I'm a sole proprietor, right? And so maybe, if I'm not mistaken, if I was structured as a LLC, then like there's, I don't know. It's like again, I'm a little ignorant to all this, but I think when you're an LLC, there's some kind of legal.
So your first intuition was go in debt.
Right.
Don't spend money.
Like,
and some people say
business credit lines or,
it takes money to make money.
Right.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
That's not true. What business school and what all these closed economies in third world countries have taught me is business runs on favors. Doesn't run on money. Business runs on favors. And so when you have one way you can finance your business is through the purchase of common stock. So if you buy companies that are good, let me digress. I have done some shit in the stock market. I've made money. I've lost money doing stupid shit. I've learned money the hard. It's like jujitsu, dude. You just jump into it and you just keep getting your ass beat and keep getting your ass beat until you learn like, oh, this is the best method or blah, 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 or the fundamentals and this and that. what I keep finding going back to is Warren Buffett's tactics are the best. So I just do Warren Buffett tactics. Buy shares of stock in companies that are good, that produce a product or service that you use, that have been around before you, that'll be around long after you. Companies that you understand the business. Companies that when you look at their charts, they're always growing. They're like at their 5-year and their max. But most importantly, companies that pay a dividend, because a dividend is a tax-free compensation for risk. A dividend's a tax-free compensation for risk. So if you're married, so you can make up to $80,000 a year in dividends tax-free, assuming your income is less than $80,000. If it isn't, you can always just create a new form. Well, right. I mean, your company would be, yeah.
And so right.
Take the game of Monopoly. Everybody has it inversed.
Right.
So people think the game of Monopoly, they're like, oh, every single house, you got to buy the houses. And they think like a slave, and they think in terms of real estate. But like Thomas Jefferson said, man, real estate's the most sophisticated form of slavery ever conceived by man. You don't have to pay taxes just to own a share of stock. But you don't pay your property tax. Watch what happens to your property. Watch who really owns it. So when you play Monopoly, what you're actually doing is you have to imagine a share of stock is a Monopoly home. And that Monopoly home pays a dividend. Some do, some don't. Some are just like the lake house in Coeur d'Alene. You're just hoping, no renter in it. You're just hoping that over time it's just going to grow. So there's those type of stocks, and then there's the stocks that pay the dividends, and that's what you want. And so I go for these things called dividend aristocrats, companies like Walmart, PepsiCo, Procter & Gamble, Hershey's, Apple. But either way, that dividend is a tax-free rent payment. It's a rent payment. So, if you can own a home, but unless you have a renter in it, right, it's not an asset. It's a total liability.
So you've put money into the stock market,
mm-hmm,
and then it pays you like little drips back.
Drips. Some people use that term. I use just dividends.
Right. So what I'm saying is, like, obviously, how do I put it? So before you had any income, before you had put any into it, you were just like invested in your knowledge, right? And so you had these tactics and strategies that you hadn't employed yet. So then you get your income from the military, like, and you were just putting in like what, 100 or 200 or all of your income into it. And what were you living on? And so what I'm curious is, at what point, so have you put like $100,000 into the stock market? Have you put $300,000 into the stock market? How much of your life have you put into the stock market? And so, like, say, I'll just use a square number, right? So let's say you've put $500,000 into the stock market. I don't know if that's crazy. I'm so ignorant, and this is uncharted territory. Does that $500,000 pay you $50,000 a year, or like, what does it do back to you? Because, like, for example, with my fire pits, to use my puny example of my fire pits, I don't even know how much money I've dumped into my business, my own stock, right? And, like, it doesn't necessarily pay me anything. I've just put money into this idea that, like, is, like, basically, I know if I buy metal and cut it out into shapes that I build into fire pits, it makes more money, that I could buy more metal and cut into more shapes to make more fire pits. It's like this thing that begets itself. It makes a lot of sense. There's nothing mystical about it. Buy metal, cut it into shapes, build it into fire pits, sell those fire pits, buy more metal, cut it into shapes. So it's like, it's not necessarily, I'm not doing it like business model-y at high enough volume and frequency enough for it to be like I'm really making money, but I'm living like I'm at a just enough point.
The
You know what I mean?
question is, how much money do you need today to retire?
The
That's
average
what
person,
you're trying to get at. And
right.
how much money do you need to... Here, we'll do this. Can you...
Because the way I live realistically is in contrast to most. I kind of live like I am retired.
That's fine.
Right. Even though I might not have.
Here, let's do this example. So first off, let me start off. There's this great book. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon.
Okay. I think I might have bought that one.
Read it. Yeah. There's an important part where this guy, he's like, I always feel trapped. And so it goes back into ancient Babylon. It's a fictional story, but it's about financial literacy. And he's like, I always feel trapped. I can't pay my bills and blah, 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 and everything. There's no money left for me at the end of the day. How am I ever going to get ahead? And then the richest man in Babylon says to him, he said, you have the heart and the mind of a slave. If you keep thinking like that, you'll never be free. You need to burn it. These words like fire in the sky. Part of what you make is yours to keep. And so you got to think of that, like, if you aren't willing to rob from somebody just to get off that plantation, you're always going to be on that plantation.
Right.
And sometimes the easiest person to rob from is like, oh, well, you got to think about that. You got to think about things like, do you need insurance?
Right. Right.
How long can you drive without insurance? You know? Okay, but here's the bigger question. I'm not here to promote illegal things, but let's say this. It's about building walls, building bricks into the walls of Babylon. So for example, what is your...
life's overhead?
No, what's your cell phone bill?
60,
just that.
$66.
$70 a month. So if you have $70 a month, so you have your phone, are you able to pull up Yahoo Finance on your phone?
I probably could. I don't use it personally. What is it?
Okay, so here, I'll just pull it up. So if we go to a company in Yahoo Finance, if we look at one that's a good dividend aristocrat, say like,
S&P 500, Dow, NASDAQ, all those things.
So you go to the search bar, type in IRM. All right.
IRM?
Yeah, IRM. So it's going to populate with Iron Mountain Incorporated.
Yeah.
So click on Iron Mountain.
Yep, there I am.
So on Iron Mountain is the REIT, that owns the server farm. So it's a real estate investment trust that owns the server farm. So click at the 5-year thing on the 5-year graph, and you notice how it goes up.
Yeah.
Right. Click on the max, and then you notice how it like jumps up and it bullwhips up. When it goes straight up like that, like a stair step, that's called a bullwhip. That's a good sign. It means it's been valuated into a higher asset class, right? Now, if you scroll down and you go down into these financials, you'll see this thing called forward dividend yield.
Yeah.
All right. It's $2.60 a share. All right. So what you got to do is you have to figure out, for this example, how many shares of Iron Mountain stock do I need to purchase in order for them to pay my cell phone bill for the rest of my life into perpetuity? And this is how we answer this question. So we know it's $6.30 a share right now. So what we do is we go to our calculator, we pull out, we know it's $70 for your monthly bill divided by 2.6 is going to be 26.9, so 27 shares, right? 27 shares of Iron Mountain stock is going to yield enough money in dividends to pay for 1 month's phone bill. We have to multiply it by 3, all right? Because they pay quarterly. So you multiply it by just 3 months and a quarter. 4 quarters in a year. So that's approximately 81 shares of Iron Mountain stock. So we multiply it by be 60. And you're not going to believe this, but what if I told you buying that much in Iron Mountain stock will pay your cell phone bill for the rest of your life?
So is that dollars?
Dollars, homie.
So you could basically spend $5,000 once, and then your
Cell phone bill is paid off for the rest of your life through the purchase of that.
Right.
So you start tackling all those things. Every bill at a time. Purchase common stock. You can do it through Robinhood, E-Trade, anything. You don't need to go to money brokers. You don't need to be giving money to people that are keeping it away from you till the age of 65 and Roth IRAs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you can be a big boy and do it yourself.
Right.
And take those dividends and just... And here's the thing, too. If we look at... how much...
So let's do the math on the opposite. Like, all right, you didn't buy stocks. Now you're just paying $70 a month for the rest of your life. You know, so 70 times 12, $840. I'm 30. Let's say I live to 80. So another 50 years times 50. $42,000 or a little less than $5,000.
Yeah, dude. I mean, people
Talk
don't
about
think
saving your
about
money.
this. They don't think down the road. So if you go back to Yahoo Finance, well, also IRM, by the time that happens, IRM's a good stock, and your money is going to most likely double in 5 years. Okay? So in 5 years, that $5,000 is going to be $10,000.
And so that $10,000. So you invested $5,000, but in 5 years it'll
that
be
$5,000 will be $10,000.
And that $10,000 realistically
will double your dividends, because by that point the price per share will be so unaffordable for the average person. So it's like Chipotle Mexican Grill around $1,800 a share. It's too damn expensive for me to buy. So once it gets too expensive for them to buy, and they're like, hey, we need to expand as a company, one way we can expand as a company through financing is through the selling of stock. So how do we sell stock? We make it more affordable for people like Scott to purchase some Chipotle stock. So we're going to split it. For example, Google, one share of Google did a 20-for-1 split. So when I had Google, it was at $2,000 a share, and then it did a split 20-for-1. And so now they're all $135 a share.
Oh, right.
So you can pick it up at a cheaper price.
Interesting.
Yes. And then over time, you hold on to those shares and they continue to pay you dividends. And that's where compound interest comes from.
Right.
Because everybody thinks it's like some magical formula, like time to the exponentiated to the thing. But yes, so you do that. If you know that $5,000 is going to pay your cell phone bill today, you do that, and then wait. And that's...
So we'll just be fanciful here. Say I had $100,000 to be smart with, right? And we use that little microcosmic example of like, hey, you want to at least check the box of your phone bill for the rest of your life? We'll take $5,000 of that $100,000. Now you only have $95,000, but $5,000 we bought that stock. It was called what? Iron Mountain Incorporated stock.
Yep.
So I just took $5,000 out of my $100,000 and bought however many of those stocks that is, and then it's almost like a savings account, like a $5,000. I put it in there. It's like, can't touch that. It's that $5,000 because that pays me a dividend
and will pay you way more than any savings account would. No savings account's going to double your money in 5 years.
Right.
And then there's also, and so there's that. There's like the ones you want to make money on quick. So if you look at Yahoo Finance and you type in LLY, they're a drug company. LLY. So these things I'm telling you are called ticker symbols.
Those acronyms, those three words.
Ticker symbols. That's the slang. So you have to know the ticker symbol to type it into Yahoo Finance. You can't just like Google the company. Sometimes they're getting better, but
Right.
Eli Lilly is the name of the
Yeah.
company. LLY. Go to their 5-year, dude.
All right. Bada boom.
And go to their 5-year, go to their max, and you will see. In 5 years, you're gonna get like triple your amount of money.
Huh.
And plus, they pay a dividend.
Right, yeah.
And then you look at their max, it's like, oh wow, they just skyrocketed. So
well,
Costco's a great company.
Let's use these people for example. How much money? Like, is it? I'm sure it's different with each.
So the
company.
question is, how much money do you need today to retire?
Right.
And you do that simple math, and then you just start attacking it by purchasing shares of stock, but don't sell it. Now, remember, you're a financier at that point. When you are financing a monopoly home, you know, if you're the living in the monopoly home, if you're the mortgage, you're now the mortgage lender. And if you lended money out for someone to live in a home, and then like you're just like, oh, you know what, fuck you guys, I'm selling your home, move the fuck out. That's not what you want to be. You're an investor. You invest in the company. You hold your money in it, and it always pays you dividends.
Right. So how much? So what I'm curious is there like an industry standard or a fair market value of dividend? Like, say if you put $100,000 in Apple,
Okay.
like how much is it paying you in dividends every quarter? What percentage of your investment?
In Apple.
What percentage of your investment?
We can just go to APPL. That's their ticker symbol. Apple's a good company. They aren't a dividend aristocrat, though. This is why I go for the dividend aristocrats. But Apple is a must-own. That's for sure. So, Apple offers you $96 or 96 cents for a dividend. It's a weak dividend. They're more of a growth stock. Now let's check out this one called BlackRock.
Oh yeah, the biggest one. Yeah. BlackRock, Vanguard, or State Street.
Check out BlackRock. 5-year max, good, but go straight down to their dividend and read what it says to the audience.
I don't know what's the 3 letters or
the forward dividend yield. Oh, BlackRock BLK. BLK.
Okay, so 5-year.
Yeah, look at their max, and but go check out their dividend. Just scroll down to that.
The forward dividend and yield.
Mm-hmm.
So is that $20 per
share?
But how much does it cost to have a share?
Right now, it's $627.
So it costs you $627 to get back $20.
Yeah, but you're also getting growth. I mean, it's like, okay, but I mean, it's a good dividend. It's a great dividend.
I'm just curious. I'm just trying to understand, like, so like, what's the value? Like, just do your best to enlighten me.
You're trying to get like, okay, what? So let's go to a conservative stock, and this will probably answer your question if I haven't. Go type in PM for Philip Morris.
All right.
Philip Morris is a controversial stock.
Okay, 5-year max.
And max,
they're like the same.
Yes,
like
it's a conservative
they don't move.
stock.
Yeah,
they're the cigarette company. Go down to their dividend. It is
they're
$5.
$5, and it costs how much for a stock?
$90, $92. So,
is that open? Is that what I meant? Open or previous close or? So where are you getting that?
I just go the straight price for the day, so it's $92.26 is what it was.
Oh, okay, that's what that stands for.
And we have a forward dividend of $5.20. They
so
pay
like
that $5.20.
So it's like 6%.
Yeah, and it also depends on earnings too. Like someday McDonald's, well, 6%. Yeah, 6% is pretty good. And a dividend aristocrat's one that keeps upping the dividend every year. Philip Morris is a controversial stock because it's cigarettes, but they're setting the standard. They're saying, "Hey, man, if you pay me $100, I'll pay you $5 for sure."
Right.
So like $100 is gonna be
So what's
about $5.
So
in
why would you
return.
want your $100 with them if they're only gonna give you $5 back? Try to enlighten me there. I'm confused.
Because they're very consistent about that $5 payment. Because these companies may or may not pay the full dividend amount based on the earnings. So the dividend percentage, so the percentage is based off earnings. So for example, McDonald's MCD, if you check them out, if you look at their 5-year and max, they're amazing. So they're around $250 a share. But $250 a share, they're paying you $6.68 a share.
So yeah, not very much.
Not very much compared to the yield.
It says 668 and then the 2.69, is that what that is?
Mm-hmm.
2.69.
Yeah. So how you value these companies is based off of the flow of future dividends. So there's another thing you can do. So like for example, if we know that you buy one share of McDonald's stock and we at $2 or at $250 and we go down to their EPS. If you scroll down to EPS, that's earnings per share. All right. So that earnings per share is $10.85. So what we do is we do so like it's like 250 divided by, we'll just do 250 divided by 10. 25. So it's a multiplier of 25 times earnings. That means people are willing to pay 25 times the amount what it actually produces.
Right.
You want companies that go between 6 to 20 times earnings. It's kind of like the price per ounce.
And so,
gold. Yeah.
Oh, man.
And then knowing that McDonald's has $250 a share, and we know that they pay a $6 dividend, and so we know it's going to take them 41 payments, so 41 quarters. So divided by 4. It's going to take them almost 11 years to pay that off based on dividends.
Right.
But once 11 years is hit, it doesn't matter what direction their stock is. They've already paid off to me what they owed me based on this little micro loan that I made them.
Right.
And that, but 11 years from now, how much is McDonald's stock going to be worth? And we look at their 5-year. Like, oh shit, it'll be worth like fucking 10 times more than what it is now. So, but yeah, that's how you do it, man.
So not even use a company as an example. We'll just say $1,000, right? You take $1,000, you buy $1,000 worth of stock in a company, and 10 years go by, you get that $1,000 back, but that $1,000 now potentially is $2,000.
Oh yeah, and that's a shitty company.
And so
should have been putting it in Walmart. Would have been worth like fucking $30,000.
right, right.
Yeah.
So how does it?
Oh, and plus if they grow too, they'll split. And if they split, that equals more shares. And eventually those dividends will, I mean, you get more, the same piece of the pie, just sliced more, but eventually that pie's going to grow. Right. And that dividend, if it's a good company, like that, you're going to get paid the dividends again. And then, oh man, you've got like 20 times or 3 times the amount of dividends you were getting before. Yeah.
Man. Yeah, it's like.
So there's a company it's called Hawaiian Electric. You could look it up. It's called HE. In HE, Hawaiian Electric, they have been suffering due to the Maui fires. And they're sitting around $12.30 a share. But if you look at their 6 month, you can tell that
Mine popped up as heating oil.
Hawaiian Electric, HE.
Oh, it's the second one down. Yeah.
Yeah. So hit the 6 month, you'll see that it was running around $35, $40 a share until the fires hit. And then it just dropped it down to $12 a share. But then look at its 5-year and look at its max. It will recover. It's a great energy stock. And it usually pays a dividend. Right now it's not paying a dividend because they're suffering. But they're getting shorted right now in Wall Street. And I'm waiting for it to dip down into the single digits. And I hope it does go down there. But even if it doesn't, you could consider, if you wanted to make 3 times your money in probably around 2 years for them to recover. But maybe less time. You don't know how long it'll take for them to recover.
Right.
Just spend like $100 a month.
How come when I click 1 year or 5 year, it doesn't change it on mine?
Oh.
It says it's still down at
go
like $12. And then when I go to max, so it says the graph goes up, but the number didn't change.
Yeah, the number's not, the stock price isn't changing. But yeah, go to the max. Now you notice how, look at the overall trend, how it was like slightly going up and it dropped off instantly. That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
So it's going to eventually go back up to that trend and hit back to equilibrium at some point and recover as a company. But that's something you can consider too. Huh. Or you could just park your money in Eli Lilly or AutoZone or Chipotle.
Right.
Or whatever. Or Costco. Or
Weird.
Toyota.
So mystical to me still. I have a very rudimentary understanding of it, but yeah, I guess the math, I'm not doing all the math. It's not fully clicking. You know what I mean?
It's okay. It's just about being exposed to one person like myself.
Right. Totally.
To open your mind as to
right
how you stand in your own acres of diamonds.
Right.
And remember, a share of stock is a claim to the future earnings of the company. All right? And so that means you're part owner of the company.
Right.
And why work when other people can just work for you? But you'll find that in order to maintain a lifestyle to just like be on the edge of retirement, like not necessarily retire comfortably, but like have all your bills paid, you're not going to take a vacation. You're not going to go anywhere. If you want something, you're going to have to get a job and work for it. But you can, the average American, single American, can retire on $200,000.
Put in the right way.
Put in the right places if you know what you're doing.
Right. And so what does that $200 get you back quarterly?
What? Well, okay, hold on. That's a hypothetical.
Yeah.
What would you make quarterly on $200,000, depending on the stocks that is put in, and it depends on the quarter. Like this last quarter, a shit quarter didn't yield shit. Like,
it's like, damn, this is a rough one.
But they paid. Well, this is why. Like McDonald's, they usually pay good. They usually pay that $6. This quarter, they chose not to. They chose to skimp on the dividend, pay $1.50, because the Fed announced a rate hike. So whenever the Fed announces a rate hike, the companies don't want to pay out anything. But I mean, man, if you were to like figure out just basic math, I mean, shit, if McDonald's is running at
basically 6%.
Okay, let's do a 6% dividend. So I mean, like basic math. Let's say you had shits and gigs, $100,000, times 0.06.
It's only $6,000.
Going to be $6,000.
Right.
Every quarter.
So only $24,000. $24,000 And realistically, people are living on that right now.
Dude, yeah. What they want you to be is a slave. They want you to go buy a new truck. They want you to get in debt.
Right, yeah. Bury yourself in obligation. Yeah.
Yeah, $6,000 every quarter. Based off $100,000 put into.
All right, so a quarter is 3 months, so $2,000 a month of, we'd call it passive income, right? Is that what you'd call that, quote unquote? Your passive income from your stock investments?
Hold on. I don't reveal my hand on nothing. And I ain't rich.
No, I don't assume you are.
If depends on the quarter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, running the numbers, yeah, you see how it is.
So $100,000,
$100,000
invested in the right places could get you about a couple grand a month, and that's simple as that.
$100,000 invested in the right place is gonna yield you $6,000 a quarter. Yeah, a couple grand a month.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Finance your own business that way. So with that, you could either A, take those dividends and reinvest it into more shares of stock, or you can take those dividends and
put gas in your tank.
Put gas in your tank, pay for whatever, I don't know.
Buy a new phone.
Thing. Put more, buy
a new phone.
But that's what it's meant by
light it on fire for marketing.
Yeah, light it on fire for marketing, but like taking the money and building your bricks in the wall of Babylon, so that no matter what wars wage outside, the wall of Babylon doesn't fall.
See, that's what I meant when I said that there's always going to be that grid, that main heart of people that will just put their money where the stock says it's smartest to go, just to make sure they are putting bricks in the walls of Babylon, just to make sure this whole game continues.
Well, what most people do is they give their money to charlatans that manipulate them into thinking that the stock market is scary and it's full of crazy risk, and the only people that can manage their money for them are people with no education in it or no degree in it, and then we'll take your money for you and from you
and take a percentage of it.
And what they do is they buy shares of stock for themselves, and they keep it in a mutual fund or a fund or something, but they keep all that money, all your dividends. They're taking your dividends.
Right.
I mean, you could say, no, man, I'd rather fucking take $2,000 and put it in Chipotle. I'd make more money. They'd say, no, fuck you. You don't know what you're talking about. We're the experts.
Right.
And that's how these hedge funds have got money accumulated throughout the years, by convincing people that they're fools and that they aren't big boys and they can't manage their own money. And so a lot of these people, you know, by the time I'm done doing that, I'm never going to give my money to those charlatans again. It's like, how much more better could my life have been if the money that I gave to them I could access?
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, dude.
Shoulda,
just
coulda,
do
woulda.
it yourself. Don't be afraid, and start today. Start today.
Yeah.
Like, don't be afraid. Time is your asset.
So, where do you go to put your money in the right places? I don't even go. Like, I don't even know.
You got to go to a brokerage to purchase stock. So you can download Robinhood, which is a popular one, which is very easy. You could do E-Trade, which is not that easy. You could do the Cash App. There's so many stock brokerage places.
Cash App does stock brokerage? Weird.
Yeah, you can buy shares of stock on Cash App right now.
Is that where all the like seemingly scamming shit comes from?
WhatsApp.
Like with
not Cash App.
WhatsApp is the really weird.
It's WhatsApp. Don't do anything through WhatsApp. But no, Cash App is trusted. So I can go to Cash App. I can go to the search. I can go to MCD. Just type in the ticker symbol MCD.
I don't even have Cash App.
Oh, okay. Well then, yeah. I mean, if you wanted to, you could buy shares of stock through Cash App. But either way, just invest in yourself. Just believing in America. You know,
Right.
Just buy and don't look at it every day. Just know that every 3 months,
Right.
eventually you'll start getting those dividends, and
Right.
then at that point you have the option to like put the dividends into more or take it out and pay bills. It's up to you.
Right. So is the smart person pretty much living frugally, and every bit of dividend is like making a larger, like going right back into it to make a larger dividend come back?
Yeah, if you think about it, like how do I skimp $5,000 out of my expenses just to get just to get that cell phone bill paid?
Right.
You know, through Iron Mountain stock.
Right.
Yeah. So it could, yeah, you know, you could do penny saved, penny earned. Whatever, you could try an experiment for like an entire year. Whatever you thought you were gonna spend on McDonald's or fast food,
Right.
don't, and just buy McDonald's stock instead.
Right.
And then just watch that, and your drive for money and the production, like, you won't understand it until the dividends start hitting your account, and then you'll be like, oh, you know what? Maybe I can sacrifice eating McDonald's today just for some more McDonald's stock.
Right.
Yeah, especially when the dividends come.
Say I got to be personal. It's like I got a Taco Bell problem, right? So I need to move away from eating the Taco Bell, but maybe
buying Taco Bell stock.
Right. And so I take that $20 or $40 that I was going to spend on Taco Bell, and I just put it, literally a tiny $20 or $40 bill into Taco Bell stock. Do they even sell it that small? How does that work?
You can do fractional shares.
So you can literally put.
And let's check the price.
What's the smallest amount of something you could? Can you buy $1 worth of something, or
yeah,
can
you can buy fractional shares if the platform allows fractional shares. E-Trade doesn't. Robinhood does. I don't know if Cash App does.
How come people? Or I'm sure there's some software that does this, but like, say, I spend my money at a store, right, and it was $3.49, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't 51 cents, round it up to $4?
Taco Bell is a privately owned company. You can't spend it in Taco Bell.
Oh, because they would be sharing too much money. It's such a profitable business.
But you can make it through Chipotle.
Right. So anyway, like, that's a trip.
Well, it's good stuff to think about, but it's 3:00. I'm supposed to be meeting
all good.
somebody
Yeah,
first.
we had a good.
But
sniff.
hey, this was a great podcast.
Yeah, good times.
Where can people get a hold of you?
Yep. Solidfirepits.com or SchumakeDesigns.com goes to the same place, or at Solid Firepits on any of the social media. You could Google my name, Scott Shumake, should come right up. Yeah, pretty accessible human being.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, hey, everybody. I hope you guys liked that. Be sure to like, subscribe, and smash that bell for more data-driven updates. Bye.